All right, let's go ahead and call tonight's meeting to order. As you can see, our chairperson, Dave Kleinjans, is not here tonight. He's a little bit under the weather. I'm going to do my best to fill in for him. Call the meeting to order. This is our September 26th regularly scheduled Park Township Planning Commission meeting. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes or corrections they'd like to make?
Motion to approve as submitted.
Support.
Excellent. Second item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from August 22nd. Does anybody have any changes or corrections they'd like to make?
I didn't.
Page 10 in the second paragraph. More than halfway through, there's a set. He mentions another list they looked at is seems like a little bit fragmented.
Okay.
Not quite sure what that thought is. You mentioned we're short staffed right now. This. I'm not sure. Oh, that was
And this was
Lynn's comments.
Okay.
He mentions another list they looked at, not just really maybe another thing they looked at. Another item.
It's in the second paragraph. Yeah. Okay, got it. Mentions another this thing. That they looked at, perhaps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just take out the yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, I think covered if you did excellent job.
All right. Anything else, anyone? We are. A recording secretary? We are. I'm not sure. Okay. We'll yeah, probably do the best we can. Yep. Thank you.
We're recording.
Yes, we are. We're recording, so it'll be recorded. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with that minor amendment.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Approved as it with corrections. All right, the first item on the agenda is public comment. I would ask, I know we've got a couple of items on the agenda tonight that will both have public hearings with those. If you would, if you do have anything specific that would be tied to those, to either of those two items, we can go ahead and hold on for that time frame. But if there's any other public comment that we have outside of those two topics, now would be the time. Anybody on the left-hand side? Oh, okay. Anybody on my left, on your right? Seeing none, anybody on the right, on your left, my right? All right. With that, we'll close public comment. The first item that we have, that we'll have a public hearing for will be on the request for rezoning for 128 Wakazoo. Mika, could you go ahead and introduce that for us?
Yes, indeed. So this is a quick rezoning request, right kind of across the road here, 128 Wapazoo. The staff recommendation is for approval, and the reason being, there are a number of, this wasn't an area that we looked at in the master plan when we were evaluating things. We didn't dial in on this one. There are already a number of multifamily and commercial uses right in that area. Some of them owned by the same property owner. It's a 2-acre parcel that's there. There's water available, there's sewer available. The street has additional roadway capacity. And so it appears to be a viable use. Now, that's going to be up to the planning commission to decide if that's the direction that you'd like to go. Obviously, there have been some public comments received. There's a possibility of, it's kind of a messy corner as far as access goes, landlocked parcels. There's a possibility that this could help clean that up a little bit, but not a guarantee. So just keep that in mind. When you approve a rezoning, it's approved for any use that's permitted in that zoning district. So there may be plans, there may be ideas, but at the end of the day, any use in that zoning district, because that'd be done on that parcel.
Great. Thank you, Mika. Just as a reminder, everyone, when this comes before the planning commission, what we're doing is evaluating the information that's provided and making a recommendation. So we're essentially making a recommendation for approval or denial to the board. Ultimately, they're the final decision makers on this. Okay. So to open the public hearing, do we have someone from the Wapazoo project who'd like to present?
Do we need this mic? This important for recording?
Yes, thank you.
Well, good evening. My name is Jason Grant, and this is my wife, Emmy. And hi, everyone that's here interested in kind of what we're talking about this evening. We're also here with Josh Molnar from Nearville, who's helped us kind of think this through. Before we get into the details of the request, we just wanted to tell everyone a little bit about who we are. My wife, Emmy, is born in Holland and has lived in Park Township her whole life, the exception of 4 years where she moved very far away to Calvin and then came back. I've been here for about 20 years. We have 5 kids between us, 2 through West Ottawa, 2 that are currently at Zeeland Christian and 1 are at Holland Christian and 1 at Zeeland West. So we're trying to experiment with all the schools in the community. I work at Fleetwood Group off of James Street. I run the company there, and I've been there for about 10 years, and Emmy is a benefits manager at Request Foods. Currently live in Timberline, and we have a property in Wapazoo that we're currently renovating. That's also on Wapazoo Drive. That will be our home. So we're not outside community investors or developers. We live here. We love Holland, we love Park Township, and we really love Wapazoo Woods, the point that's where we want to make our home together. Just a little bit of backstory on kind of how this all came about. We already own the property behind Kin. So there's a 4-plex that's right there. And then there's another property that's behind the dentist office next to Kin that was originally built as a motel. It's been a long-term rental for many years, and we continue to own that and operate that. And then this property that's, when it came on the market, we thought it could be a really cool opportunity to offer more affordable housing and attainable housing for our community. And then as we got into it more and working with Josh, learned that there were a lot of other things that as part of the master plan that the community was trying to accomplish around traffic congestion on the road, and some other factors that we've captured in the request. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of introduce us a little bit, and I'll turn it over to Josh here to go through some of the details.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening. Josh Molnar with Netterville. Our proposal here is really trying to hit a couple of township goals, like Jason alluded to, providing attainable housing, the current zoning, the opportunity for going and getting any more, I might need to do this better, sorry. The possibility for hitting any of the township goals of increasing, available housing stock is somewhat limited with the current zone there. Sorry, keep stepping away from this. And then, also along those same lines, the master plan shows this area being pretty much coming all commercial, the existing R5 that was there kind of going away, right? You've got the packet there. And so our opinion was that, these parcels to the south that are LDR, instead of having a possibly higher, they're intending to keep their properties the same for all intents and purposes, but there is the possibility that someone could come in and do a commercial use right next to a single family, low density residential. And so providing this, even though the R5 is going away with that master plan on that corner, putting that strip in there kind of gives a better transition zone to those lower density residentials. Now, as Mika alluded to, the rezone would allow us to do anything under that allowed uses. Our goal is not high density apartment, multifamily type stuff. It's cottage clusters, smaller scale houses for, as Jason alluded to, attainable, older community or younger community, first time home buyers. Really that's, it's kind of the goal there is to just provide a better transition. And along those lines, if it should work out, take some of those drives that are going to their existing properties off of Ottawa Beach. Another goal of the master plan and, improvements of the areas to try and get congestion down. I live right down the street, James and Butternut too, so I'm familiar with the area and how busy it can get. So, our hope would be that the design does allow, some improvement to that congestion there as well. We've not done any designs yet. We're holding off to get really into those weeds and spinning those wheels until we had some sort of indication that things were heading in a direction that would allow that. And then in general, just, if there's any questions you guys had from the report that, I think Mika did a pretty good job, or an excellent job, excuse me, of summarizing it and, elaborating on what we had provided. But, I want to see if there's any questions you guys had for us.
Great, thank you. I guess just to start, and just point of context here, as far as public hearing, I know we have a number of folks that would like to speak as well. Mika, should we at this point have discussion across our group, or should we, obviously we have questions, we can ask those.
I don't think there's a statutory requirement, so I think typically if there are any immediate questions that you have, you might ask those and then go to the public hearing, but you can do it in any order you'd like. Typically
Okay.
after the public hearing, then you'll have the discussion. So you can ask questions then too.
Thanks. It's amazing when you're sitting in this seat, how much you don't absorb about this role. So
Sure.
thank you. Thank you. I guess one question I would have, obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning, the rezoning request would create a lot of opportunity, and I appreciate your desire to align to the master plan objectives. I think the affordable housing, attainable housing piece is really a very high priority for us as well. I guess one question I would ask, is there anything that could impact your ability to build in the way that you're defining you'd like to, in terms of homes versus other types of multifamily?
I guess I didn't totally understand. But
I'm just trying to understand if there are other changes or things that could impact the ability, or either the ability or the plan to go from homes to be purchased, attainable housing to be purchased, to other types of multifamily like apartments. Yeah, obstacles would probably be a better way.
Not again, without having a design on paper, at this time, that's not the direction that that we're heading. I think you guys are planning to own and rent, or were they going to be for sale homes?
Yeah, as Jeff said, we were very early, we didn't go too far down the path, I tried to figure out exactly what this looked like, and wouldn't sure and support from the commissioner of the community to do this. One of the concepts that we're really excited about is other parts of the country have these pocket communities or cottage courts, which are smaller scale, kind of tiny homes. That provide great space and allow to create a small sense of community in a really cool way. So in the Northwest, they're much more popular and they're not very common around here. We thought there could be a way to do that. So, our vision is not like some big apartment building. What we're thinking is something that's be beautiful, could keep the aesthetic of the trees. And really fit in better with what we place. But we haven't done the
Sure.
work yet to even
Yeah.
figure out all the,
Right.
you know, if they would be possible to do all of that and how the access would work. But that's kind of the vision that we have. That's what we're kind of excited about as a concept.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so to elaborate on that, that's why, you know, we feel it's a good transition to that low density because it's not necessarily intended to be a big, 12-unit apartment building with just a parking lot, it's detached, single family, smaller scale. So it still feels single family, it's just getting this classification of, the low density multifamily zone to kind of, have some more to allow those different opportunities.
Sure.
Because, ultimately some of these creative ideas might require a PUD and, our interpretation of that was that the density for that is kind of founded on the underlying zone. So getting us up into this R5 zone where our density numbers would more align with the ability to be more creative with the PUD is ultimately probably the direction that it'll head.
Okay.
What we're
Yes,
looking at is
sure.
one of the things in the master plan statistic that cited is about 17% of the people in our township live alone. And most of those are seniors. And I think especially in these times where people are I think people are craving a stronger sense of community and many seniors feel more isolated. And we feel like this would be a concept that could help bring people together. And we have people in our own families that talk to them about this. They also believe it's a business.
Great. I guess one of the reasons I asked about, and I'm kind of, I guess, poking at this a little bit, is just not probably a surprise that we've gotten some communications with some resistance to the idea.
Mhm.
And I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of paint a picture of what you'd like to do, understanding that things can change, but to make sure that folks understand what your desire is for that property.
Yes, appreciate that opportunity. And yeah, it is our goal to have something that is not burdensome or an eyesore, is, preserves the trees and landscape as much as possible and is just a natural transition or slightly even maybe a better transition to that possible master planned commercial area, kind of giving, maybe it's a little bit more dense than the R3 that exists there, but it's not quite as bad as having a car wash or something, have their parking lot right up against the LDR, your neighbor, your property. So
Understand. Great,
Mr. Chair, may I ask a clarifying question?
please.
When you're describing this type of community, I'm trying to put it into a frame of reference of something that I'm perhaps more locally familiar with. Is your vision something size-wise similar to the corner of 16th and Central? With those smaller
like right
detached
downtown.
homes?
Yeah, I think, are you familiar with that area? It's like, right. Yeah, sorry. I think so. It's smaller. I won't speak for you guys. But I
Yeah,
think
there's,
It's that.
Yep.
Those homes are less than about 750 square feet. I
sure.
mean, they're very small.
Okay.
They put two houses on a city lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know that community, but yes, I mean, very small, enough space that you have everything that you need to live, but you can afford it.
I was thinking at Crystal Mountain, they have like the cottages.
Mr. Chair, could we have them use the microphone, please?
Oh, yes, sorry. If you could step up to
Sorry.
the mic, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
So, I mean, around here, the places that we think have a similar feel that we're envisioning, Crystal Mountain is the best, like the cottages there, not the same size, right? Much smaller, but that feel where you have kind of these just little houses that are placed in a way around common gardens or fire pits, where you can actually build community. Rather than having everyone's front porches facing away from one another. I mean, these community concepts that are doing really well in other parts of the country, people love living as part of, they face one another, right? So you build relationships with your neighbors, you're supporting your neighbors, and it's really building a sense of community. Sorry, Stephanie, I don't know that particular property that you're talking about, but I think the Crystal Mountain feel, for anyone who's been there, that's kind of the feel where it's, it's built into the trees. It's just part of the aesthetic of the mountain.
Thank you. Any other questions at this point?
Yeah, based on, excuse me, based on your experience, do you have a feel for what the density would be?
We would hope around like 10 units, probably, because there's gonna need to be a turnaround and some stormwater detention, and sorry if I'm back away from this, but
No. go right ahead.
that would be my ballpark at a glance. You know, don't hold us to that, I guess. It could go up, it could go down. I mean, you know, according to Mika's rough calculation, you know, the density was 19 units, but obviously we know with roads and driveways and ponds, it's probably not gonna get anywhere near that. And so I would say 10 would be our goal of these detached homes, it clustered in, you know, groups of 4, 3, sharing a common sidewalk and having, you know, nice backyards and yeah.
Others? Question, Dennis? you
I've got
okay?
one other thing that I could add,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
if it's all right. You know, some of the other things that, you know, as I said at the beginning, we live here, we want to make our community better. And I can imagine why people who live in Wakazu Woods, a lot of you here might be worried about it. And I totally get that. You know, one of the things that, as we were kind of reading through some of the statistics for our community, I mean, that the intersection right here is terrible. I mean, I think this has the third most accidents, if I remember right from the report, in all of Park Township. And a lot of it is because of just the sheer amount of traffic that's kind of going through here. It doesn't, part of that traffic burden is because of a couple of the other properties that we already own that access on the Ottawa Beach Road. Right? I mean, you get into the fourplex, you get into the other property we have behind the dentist's office through these drives that enter Ottawa Beach Road. And so, you know, one of the things that we thought maybe could help the community with reducing flow directly on Ottawa Beach Road is actually having them access on the Wakazu Drive. So people then at least have the safety of a traffic light. You know, as we're trying to create a more pedestrian friendly community, and with all the, I mean, amazing development that's happened over here, giving people the ability to cross back and forth, to go over to the fairgrounds as that gets, you know, developed more in the future. We thought it could help address some of the safety concerns at that intersection too. So, I mean, there were a number of things that we thought could benefit the community in addition to just the additional housing.
Do you think you would shut those driveways off?
One of the things that we talked about, yeah.
What's the approximate width of that parcel?
I'll turn that back over to you.
Have that measurement on top of my head.
Is it on your easel here?
Like 140 feet, yeah.
Okay. That's close enough.
Mr. Chairman. I'm a little uncomfortable considering a zoning decision without seeing more detail.
Okay.
And I would be much more comfortable with a PUD proposal where we could really study and analyze and take in the total scope of the project. I realize that putting forth a plan is a costly proposition, but it is significant to make a zoning change of this magnitude without seeing the detail.
That's fair.
Mr. Chair, could I comment on that?
Please.
It is helpful in understanding intent to see a plan, but I would actually caution you a little bit away from that, because good intentions of the applicant aside, anything could happen tomorrow. The property could change hands, and then with the rezoning, it would be any use. So it is helpful to understand what their intent is. But at the end of the day, once it's rezoned, there is anything could happen there. So sometimes seeing a plan can muddy the waters a little bit, because then they show you a plan and then storm water retention calculations come back differently and the plan has to change radically. You've kind of gone down a road that doesn't end up leading anywhere, because the plan had to change once some of that happened. So I would suggest kind of looking at the zoning in general and just saying, is this something that we want to see? Are any of the potential uses which are included in your packet, are we comfortable seeing any of those potential uses there? And kind of think through what that would mean, and if you have a comfortability with that.
correct me if I'm wrong, but we normally go through a sequence of rezoning and then see the proposals and the site plans
Right.
in that sequence.
Yep, so all of that would all be site plan
Yeah.
review stuff. Yep, PUD review.
Based on the size of property, this almost has to be a PDU, does it not?
I think it would be likely without having gone too deep into it, just based on the dimensions because of it's long and narrow. I think it would be likely to be a PUD. But it's there, if it's up to their creativity, it
Sure.
could also be a site condo. They, you know, there are things that they could work out there.
Thank you.
So I guess to support Mika's comments, what we really, and obviously we have a lot to hear from the folks in the neighborhood and get some additional comments. But what we really need to decide is whether we think this is an appropriate zoning change to multifamily in that area. And then the builder and the owner would have the opportunity later to bring that site plan. Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. Right now, at this point, we'll go ahead and open the period of public hearing. We'll start with our left, your right.
Mr. Chair, did you tell them about the sign-in sheet?
Oh, yes, thank you. Please sign in before you come up and try to keep it to 3 minutes. Thank you. What's that? Oh, okay. And Brian's got the official time clock over here, so we should be good.
Karen Daniel, 1119 Post Avenue. I don't know if you need to know that.
That's
It's
all.
down there.
Thank you.
What Mr. Dennis, I'm gonna call you. I agree with that. It seems like right now it's very vague what would happen. And when you rezone something, you open the door to a lot of possibilities. And I think it would be setting a precedent to, you know, what other property owners could do. And it kind of scares me living in the neighborhood, owning property across the street. You know, and I mean, what would stop us then from doing that with our acreage? And then what does that do to the aesthetics of a neighborhood? Also, accident wise, I think a lot of the accidents living there for 30 some years happen at the intersection, not down the road to the west. They happen at the intersection. So now if it's a traffic issue, it appears to me there would be even more traffic coming through that intersection. And I do agree that the intersection is a issue. But I guess that is mine. If you rezone it, you've now opened the door for, okay, this was our vague intention now, but now we've got a lot of more possibilities to add to that. So that would be my concern, and changing the aesthetics of a neighborhood. That.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm John Daniel, Karen Daniel's husband, 1119 Post Avenue. And I didn't make your board, but we're in the bottom right corner of the opposite the road. And I say that for a reason I'll explain later. First off, I appreciate what you want to do. We have 4 children ourselves. We know affordable housing is going to be their future as well. So I appreciate what you're doing. If I look at the other side of the coin, we've been residents of this community for 36 years. We started off with 1.4 acre. We have since adjoined and created a nice size parcel, 10 acres of residential and 2 acres of commercial. We run the Wakazu Market. We own the Wakazu Market property next to the itty bitty. So on the flip side, I'm looking at this saying I vested in this area pretty heavily because that's what you told me it was, single family residence. And I adjoined and kept to that same model that you have dictated to me. although I would appreciate to think about our community growing, it has to be able to grow in other areas. If I look at that zone property, 2 acres now, but this is a slippery slope. They indicated that they have property other than the zone in question. What would stop them from adjoining, like I know how to adjoin and create a massive area? And I'm very glad, Stephanie, you brought up the central 16 area, because I did have a vision when you brought that up. As well as I also appreciate Crystal Mountain. I've been up to Crystal Mountain. I know exactly what you're referring to. It's a very nice area. So my point is, what would stop me from coming to the same board meeting when I get ready to think about what I want to do with 400 feet of linear frontage on Wakazoo Drive, right across the street? That's 4 different parcels. I could conjoin them and keep them 400 foot with about 3 acres deep. And I could be doing the same thing, but I don't want to do that to my neighborhood. And I don't want you to do that to us either. Thank you. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Chris Hansen and I live over on Foxtown, which is also in Wakazoo Woods.
Okay.
I moved here about 3 years ago, during the COVID enjoyment time. And I looked for a very long time for a house. It was never a money issue. It was a location issue. I wanted to move to Holland and I looked through a lot of houses here. Wakazoo Woods is unique. It's different. You don't see that anywhere else. Well, most places, not down here at least. If you go further north, you can find similar places, but not down here. It's home to some of the oldest oak trees in the state of Michigan. And if you look at a sky view of the plot that they are hoping to put these houses on, there's no way you can fit that many miniature houses without knocking down a lot of trees. And these are trees that are hundreds of years old and can't just be replaced. They also block a lot of sound that goes on at the county fairgrounds. Last year, when we had, or during COVID, we had a lot of stuff outside, we heard a lot of sound. With the trees being gone, it's gonna be even louder. And so the nice peaceful neighborhood that I moved into will get much louder. It's just a very beautiful and unique place, and any changes to it invites further changes to it. And I bought into the area because of what it was.
Thank you.
Hi, Jackie Beck, 3334 Hollywood. I just want to say that while I do like, I definitely think Park Township needs more affordable housing. And I do like the idea of a grouping of tiny houses like that. Once it's rezoned, people can do anything allowed. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think R5 does allow multiple single-family homes on a single lot like that. And that lot, as others have said, also has a good number of very old trees. And being zoned R5 increases the possibility that greater number of those trees would likely be cut down. The trees are really a key, and that would be a real shame to lose those.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Sestaro. I live a couple houses down from this location. I didn't find out about this until yesterday, and only because a neighbor happened to give me a copy of the notice. So first off, I would say the process for notifying people might need to be revised. Secondly, I did send in a letter yesterday, and hopefully you've gotten a copy of it. If not, I'll happily hand it in right now so that you guys may review it. And then today, once I was done with all my stuff for the day, got home from the university and took care of all my errands, I had 3:30, I started walking the neighborhood to let as many people know about this. And then if they couldn't physically come, because we have old people on our street that we try to watch out for too, I made up a little sheets showing their opposition to it and allowed them to sign it if they couldn't physically be here for whatever reason. So I'll happily give these to the commission too, if you'd like it. And, I lived here for almost 20 years. My kids went to West Ottawa. You know, they've all gotten married and bought homes. Like, I get the affordable housing. But at the same time, I grew up in Chicago. I've seen a lot of shady things. And the moment that flips to R5, it doesn't matter what the plan is. The plan goes out the window. In my mind, I always assume worst case scenario. What's the worst possible thing they could put in there? And people have pointed out the traffic and this and that and the other thing. There's no way putting more units in there doesn't increase the traffic. It's not as if people are going to drive down a mile and go into Wakazu Drive from the other end. That intersection is going to have more traffic. And again, I don't think it fits the character of the neighborhood. Literally every house I stopped at, either they weren't home or they answered the door. And if they answered the door, they signed the form. Would you like these or?
Could you grab those? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, come on up.
Hi there. My name is Jessica Francis. We live at 1195 Winter Green. So our property actually butts up to the very back of where this property would be, with the notion that we also have a neighbor right behind us that would block that property from us. For us, we've lived in this area for 7 years. We moved here to be near our family. We're about a quarter mile on each end for my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law. We have 4 children and we are at the end of a cul-de-sac. This is a great neighborhood for us. We love that we have so much property behind us. Our kids are able to play. But we have noticed over the last couple of years that from the unit that is directly behind our neighbor, that there are some interesting characters that live in that facility already. That we have heard people jumping our fence at night. So those are the concerns that come up to me. If I have 4 children and I'm choosing to live in this safe area neighborhood, I know every single one of my neighbors in that neighborhood. I feel safe having my children out there. I don't feel comfortable having them in my backyard at night. And this is going to tenfold make me feel incredibly nervous to have such small housing or whatever gets developed there. On the other side, we have tons of senior living facilities coming up in this area. So to think that seniors are going to come live in these tiny homes to create community. I work in a senior living facility for the last 8 years. They flock to these communities because they can create community there. These are the places that they are going to go and look to create that community with others like. And they go to those because they need that extra help and that extra security. It's going to completely change the dynamic of where we live by adding in all these small houses. I mean, right now we look out our backyard, we have a huge lot. You look out, it's trees and it's a great place, aside from when all the leaves fall and we can see that small little 4-plex apartment back there. And can't wait for the foliage to grow back so we don't have to view those apartment complexes. So again, I think it's going to change things. We don't look forward to having this, and it's really for the safety of my children and where we're raising our kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Josh Sweat. I also live on Wintergreen Drive. I've lived here for about 7 years now. I moved in, bought the house as a single individual, and have since grown a family, wife and 2 kids. And I want to echo, I appreciate Mr. Grant's vision. I don't think that he has any bad intentions for the use of this property, but I will also echo the concerns of this being able to be used for anything that R5 allows in the future. I will also echo the congestion topic to say that I also don't believe that congestion would be resolved by creating a private drive that adjoins to the existing drives on Ottawa Beach. I think that the intersection is the problem, and further traffic would make the intersection have more congestion. Another thing I want to point out is back in March, the Park Township Board made an amendment to the zoning ordinance with regard to short-term rental properties. And I realize this is not the same, but I think there are some very similar concerns that were recognized by the board with that topic, in that short-term rentals really are more of a business or commercial activity, and they are incompatible with single-family residential use. And these short-term rentals do also devalue adjoining properties. And I think that obviously we'd be at risk for that if this property were rezoned as well. I also want to make a point that I think the intent to create low-cost housing is a great intent, although I'm not sure the correct solution to that problem is to remove an existing residential property to create something else. Reducing the supply of single-family housing doesn't reduce the cost of single-family housing. I also just want to echo some of the concerns about rental properties and the fact that the individuals who rent the properties do have less attachment to the area, the community, and just creating that community and that feel that we really appreciate about the Waukezu Woods area. Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Corolla Van Hukelum, and I live at 138 Waukezu Drive. My property is adjacent to the property that is being asked to be rezoned. I've lived there for 24 years, and while I can appreciate your vision for affordable housing, you folks don't live next door. Half of the lot, in fact, I would invite you to come over to my home and see half of it is all wooded lot, as well as 128 Waukezu is all wooded. Again, I would echo the barrier with when the fair happens every year. I hardly know that it's happening because of the wooded area. I'm really nervous. I don't do this kind of thing, and thank you to the neighbors over there to support all of us here.
You're doing great.
Okay.
If you would though, just kind of direct your
I
comments.
feel pretty invested in this process, as you could probably imagine. This is all else I have to say, that I do know that the buyer paid $100,000 over asking price, and that respectfully, I hope that this is not, tonight's meeting is an exercise in futility. So thank you for listening to all of our concerns tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barb Francis. I live at 1019 South Baywood, and two of the people back there are my son and my daughter-in-law. They live on Wintergreen, and 7 children altogether are my grandchildren that will be playing over at that house. And I do have some concerns that this property will end up looking like the reserve, that trees will be cut down and look barren like the reserve does now. Waukezu Drive already, if anybody has stood out there with kids by a bus stop, is already a racetrack. So it's not going to get any better with more houses back there. Rental properties also, people that live there do not have a vested interest in it like homeowners do. So the upkeep of property has a tendency to not be as good as the homeowner itself does. And these people on Wintergreen take very good care of their properties. I hate to see it go downhill and their property values go down. I just don't see it making anything better by putting multiple properties squished into a 2-acre parcel. It's also going to bring more noise, more congestion, more accidents. There's always a number of accidents at that corner every summer. You can hear the sirens coming. It's always from where we live. What's going on now? Is it going out to the beach this time or is it the corner? You know, it's not, I really do think it's a great idea what you're wanting to do. I just don't think our neighborhood is where it needs to be. Waukezu Woods is a very unique place, and the whole woods is a unique community in itself. It doesn't need to have micro communities inside of it. That's it.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Any other folks who would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Steven Francis. I live, well, you already heard my address, it's 1185. I'm a little bit different in the aspect, I worked construction for Heisinger Ready Mix for the past 10 years. And I've been a part of these small little projects and the footprints that construction leaves. It might look good on a piece of paper, but we always take up a lot more than we say we're going to. And I think we got deer, bald eagles, we have plethora of wildlife. And I think, yeah, well, it's only 40 something feet wide or 139 feet wide. It's not a very large parcel to be able to develop something that you think you're going to be able to do on. You're going to dig further out. You're going to encroach on other people's properties. It's a good idea, but it's just especially with my mom said with the reserve, they took way more than what they said they were going to. We always end up cutting down a few more trees, making holes a little bit bigger, backing up into people's properties, breaking their stuff. It's just a cluster. And my wife forgot to say, but if you look at like the sex offenders registry, that apartment complex behind us too has registered sex offenders added that even we've never had them report to us. We've never been told about them. Like, we don't know who's going to come into our neighborhood. We'd rather not have to deal with it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, yes, I didn't bring any notes. I've never been to one of these meetings before. But Holland has been my home for 40 years. My name is Dee Andrews, by the way.
Dee Andrews,
I
thanks,
live at
Dee.
131 Waukezu Drive. And anyway, Holland's been my home for 40 years. I love it. I love the community. Waukezu Woods. Yeah, we might have some old people. We got some young people with young families. And yes, that road, Waukezu Drive, is a racetrack. Every day, all day. My daughter and I live together. Every morning when she backs up to try to pull out on that street to go to work, I kind of hold my breath because people don't slow down. We need no more traffic in that neighborhood, and that intersection is a disaster. You all know that. You know how many people die up there. I live 3 houses from the gas station. We hear the crashes all the time. So anyway, yes, I didn't move to this side of the state to be a replicate of what I moved from. So anyway, I guess that's about all I've got to say, other than I love Waukezu Woods. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Hi, Derek Watts, 141 Waukezu. I didn't have anything either. I wasn't planning on being able to make it tonight, so I would just like to kind of state where we're at. I've lived in this area my whole life. My wife grew up just around the corner from where we're at. We had joined the property with the Daniels. And I just want to kind of echo the concern of, this is a slippery slope. What's to stop the whole neighborhood from doing this? There's a lot of property we as a family have invested a lot of money to protect that area from this happening. We've bought a lot of property to protect it from storage condos going up from that zoning change. So we have a pretty large vested interest in things like this not happening and keeping Wakazu Woods. We've gone through the process with this township to get the market approved and going through what that looks like and ensuring that we keep that vision that the township has. And I don't necessarily agree with this. I understand where you're coming from, but from our perspective, it's not a fit.
Thank you. Any additional comments? All right, with that, I would need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Support.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, public hearing is closed. I wanted, I guess, make a couple of comments clarifying. First of all, just protocol. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is my first rodeo here as far as trying to chair these meetings. But I know one of the things that always has come up is the public hearing period. And I know you all appreciate this. I just want to state it. It isn't a Q&A, which is sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating when you ask questions and you get what might look like blank stares from all of us. I promise you it isn't. We're listening, we're taking it in. But I wanted to clear that up because I think in some cases people might expect to hear a response right away. The other piece I just wanted to clarify is really what we're trying to determine here based on what we've heard from all of you and from the applicant is whether or not this particular piece of property is one that we believe is a good fit for that neighborhood and whether we would want to recommend the rezoning for multifamily property. So, and I appreciate the information that was provided by the applicant and also all of your feedback. So with that, I'm going to open it for discussion and I'll be quiet and listen to see what all of you have to say or what questions you might have.
Mr. Chairman, I might just start with the appendix that basically outlines the uses for an R5 low density, so that we all have a good feel for what that is, as well as our constituents in the audience.
Thank you.
So in a R5 low density, you can have single family dwellings, you can have two family dwellings. You can have multifamily dwellings provided they are served by public water, which this has. Private and public schools, library, museums, art galleries, and similar uses when owned and operated by a government agency or nonprofit organization when authorized by the Planning Commission as a special use. Parks, playgrounds, community centers, governmental administration and service buildings which are owned and operated by a government agency or a non-commercial organization when authorized by a special use, also by the Planning Commission. Churches when authorized by the Planning Commission as a special use. Adult foster care facilities that are subject to a township zoning jurisdiction and nursing homes are permitted if authorized by the Planning Commission as a special use. Foster family homes, foster family groups, family child care homes, and adult foster care family homes are permitted use as required by the Zoning Act. Child care homes are special use to the extent required by the Zoning Act. Bread and breakfast operations when authorized by the Planning Commission as a special use, and then home occupations when authorized in accordance with section 38506. I just wanted to outline those so that we can take a look at what those are. In all reality, none of those, in my opinion, other than the bed and breakfast, would be a total deterrent to that piece of property.
Would be a deterrent.
Would not be a deterrent.
Would not be okay. Thank you.
B&B obviously would be that'd be tourist and I
right.
would not see that as an appropriate use of that property, where it's located.
Other thoughts?
Mr. Chair, I'll just share my first thoughts when reviewing this proposal. Specifically, what's been discussed in the current concept, which is completely non-binding, provoked some thought. But my first thought was actually to a project we had reviewed earlier in the year. I think it's still this year. On the south side, again, a heavily wooded lot that happened to already be zoned R5, and thinking about the use and application that would technically be permitted if we were to recommend this for approval. I don't think personally a development of that style would be conducive with the neighborhood, and with that potentially being well within the permitted uses of this zoning request. And since that's the high level criteria by which we're supposed to make this recommendation, for me, that was one of the specific concerns. We have covered a lot of the feedback via email and through the public comment. There were a number of individuals who were specifically concerned about the trees, which I think is fair, given a lot of the other scrutiny and conversation that we've had with other opportunities that we've evaluated. And I think that's something that we should certainly keep in mind as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Others? Other thoughts? I know you've got some.
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts. They're still certain, they really don't. Coincidentally, Commissioner Louise and Director Mika and myself attended the Michigan Planning Association Annual Conference in Grand Rapids this week. And I sat through a session on attainable housing and stuff like that. Going through there and having already read this proposal, I'm thinking this would be a perfect situation for that. So, you look at our master plan and we're looking at providing more attainable housing for Park Township. And in the session that I was in, it always comes up, not in my backyard. Yes, I support it, but not in my backyard. I live in a subdivision. I don't know how I would feel about it. It won't happen where I'm at. But I don't know how I would feel about it, but I think as we're trying to make Park Township a more user-friendly environment, the things that they talked about was walkability and the close to amenities, the park that's developing here, things like that. So I'm leaning in favor of the concept. But the property that Commissioner Trollope mentioned on the south side, that was already rezoned, and we basically had no control over what was put there. So my thought would be that, just by what Ms. Mika says, I would like to see a plan before we rezone it. Given the plan that would suit the maybe not all the neighbors. But the intent that was expressed, I think I would be in favor of that.
No, that's, I can understand the desire, and maybe just a point of clarification on, because I think the master plan and the alignment to the attainable housing piece is something that has been brought up and by the applicant and also by a number of the neighbors. One of the challenges we face is that we have a desire for more housing, attainable housing, affordable housing. We also have a desire to maintain our farm preservation. That's a big priority for us as well. And it makes it difficult to do both, because that means really we need to look at infill in existing properties, existing residential neighborhoods. So that's one of the things that we struggle with. I think this is going to be something we deal with a lot going forward, because I believe this is something we'll be hearing a lot and have to make some decisions on. I've got a couple of additional thoughts. Dennis, do you have any additional comments? I know you desire a plan. I'm not sure to whether we can require that. It doesn't sound like that is something Mika, give us a little bit more guidance on that. if you have
I
some.
think it's at your discretion. You may ask for,
We can ask.
you
for
may
it.
ask for things. I would advise you against it as staff. That's my job.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think what we really have to do is, based on what we've heard, is we have to make a decision as to whether, once again, we feel that this is an appropriate rezoning request, which would provide multifamily housing in this neighborhood. And we're going to have to make a decision on that without having a formal plan, but understanding the desire of the applicant.
May I ask a question of staff?
Please.
I'm trying to understand clearly what other options there may be to incorporate the vision for this property that would not require a recommendation to approve rezoning at this time without requesting site plans and you know the other information that has been recommended against. My struggle is I think similar to Dave. I actually have been intrigued with the development that I had referenced in the city of Holland. I do think it is something that when you talk about not in my backyard, personally, something like that is not objectionable like some other larger scale multifamily uses. In order to incorporate this, since it would still be different than described from my current understanding of the uses in the R5 with individual single dwellings on an existing property. I'm not sure if that proposal is clearly defined here, but I do understand that we have to, if they were to come with a PUD or some other condo type proposal, aligned to the underlying zoning. The order of operations there, I guess I'm trying to understand, would it be required to make this recommendation at this time? Or could that process begin and incorporate that with a plan for a PUD or a site condo?
Are you thinking of asking them to present a site plan prior to the rezoning?
I realize that's kind of what's being recommended against here, but that's what I'm trying to understand officially.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear that the ultimate decision at a township level would need to be made.
I think
independent of good intentions.
Yeah, I think that would be getting a little bit into conditional zoning or rezoning territory. And so as the planning commission, you don't have the ability to require a conditional rezoning. An applicant can say, I'm going to offer you a conditional rezoning. I'm going to request a rezoning with these conditions. I'm going to bind myself by A, B, C, D, that sort of thing. But the planning commission isn't able to impose conditions on a rezoning like that. So there's really not a great process for saying, we want to see the project before the rezoning.
So that's at their discretion.
Correct. And that would require, I confirm with Mr. Martin, but I'm pretty confident that would require renoticing because it would be something that's different than's already been noticed.
Thank you for clarifying.
Mr. Jeremiah?
Yes, please.
Couple comments. One, normally when a proposal is provided to us, and including the one that we're talking about, the R5 up on First Avenue, there was a proposal with a conceptual proposal. We knew it was going to be 5 buildings. We knew kind of how the driveway would be intersection. And we've had that with other proposals also that we have looked at for rezoning. There is at least a conceptual documentation that's provided. And of course, in this particular case, we do not have any of that. I personally think that this property is too small for the concept that's being provided. It is 2 acres. I live on 2 acres and I wouldn't want 10 houses on my house, even if they're only 500 square feet. That's, I think, very, very exaggerated in terms of what that's possible. And I think it would have disastrous impact to the woodland and the trees in that particular parcel. So I'm leaning towards not approving. And I think it needs to rethink some of our other zoning types, particularly R4. It could well be a very probable good solution to the property without inundating it with multiple types of units in it. It would reduce the total number of units, but yet it would still provide us the opportunity to expand our single family housing shortage that we're dealing with. So kind of where I'm coming from.
Thank you. Additional thoughts?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I feel Terry articulated it extremely well, and I'm of the same mind.
All right.
I don't believe that.
You articulated it correctly. All right. Well, if there isn't further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Well, given the fact that Terry shares multiple responsibilities with the township, I'll take the initiative and move that we do not change the zoning on this request. And we leave it as it is. I would like us to continue our, well, it's not part of the motion. So with that, I would propose that motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second? All right.
Okay, discussion.
Yes.
I feel a responsibility as a commissioner to really take a more definitive look at where multiple unit housing would be most appropriate within the township. And taking into account many of the issues that the public brought up tonight in terms of traffic, in terms of accessibility to amenities that would be supportive of multiple units. See if we can develop a strategy for being forward-looking in terms of where these facilities might end up. So I'd like to see us do that.
Very good. Other discussion? I'm in agreement, by the way, and I think one of the things we plan to do is to revisit our zoning ordinance in the very near future. I think there's a lot of things that we're talking about that candidly our zoning ordinance doesn't allow for today. We looked at some of the sizes, the square footage requirements on some of the smaller homes. And I think those, again, we're talking about affordable and smaller homes in some cases. We need to make sure that those are accommodative as well. So.
May I ask a question of the owners?
Please.
Okay. You mentioned you own some other properties right in the area. Which properties are those?
The fourplex that's right behind Ken.
Okay, and that's zone, is that zone C1? Okay, here, okay, that's already zoned R5.
Yeah.
And then the one, and we own the C1.
The one right next to it? Yeah. Okay, that's the landlocked one, that's, okay, thank you.
Clarification if I
sure.
can from Ms. Mike. If this proposal or the motion was approved and denied, that would not preclude them from coming back to the commission with another proposal
Correct.
asking for rezoning. This is not a permanent position. It's only on this particular proposal. Is that correct?
Correct. They would be free to submit another proposal, and I don't think our zoning ordinance even requires a waiting period. I'd have to double check. Some do. You have to be 6 months or something like that. I don't think ours does.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion?
Call for the question?
We'll call for the question. I'd actually like to request a roll call vote on this one. So all in favor of the current motion, which is, I believe was to, could you restate please for me, Dennis?
I made a motion to deny the rezoning
Rezoning
request.
request. Okay. So with that, roll call vote, Dennis, you made the motion, so I'm assuming.
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes, I support the motion.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So thank you. I appreciate everybody's time and participation. I'm going to suggest a quick recess.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've been sitting in meetings all day and yeah. And a lot-
Oh,
yeah.
Someone else can appreciate that.
In a long car ride to get here. Hey, folks, let's bring the meeting back to order, please. Oh, thanks, appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, folks, if we could please move the conversations outside, we've got to get things back in session. Thank you. What's that?
Next instructions.
Love that.
Go on, Dex. We're back to Dex. All right. So the next,
Big screen.
so the next topic on the agenda tonight is the Dex ordinance. And let's see, we review the changes and then public hearing. Mika, is that the
Yeah.
procedures?
I think
Okay,
so.
super. Well, why don't you go ahead? Oh, I guess I have to reopen the meeting. So it's back in session. Mika, please introduce the Dex ordinance and any significant changes. Thank you.
Yes, so there were a few changes in the red line version that were the ones that primarily that you had noted. I changed a couple minor grammatical things to try to be consistent. And then the only other there were a couple smaller changes, a definition of the porch, I think we added. And there was also some language that came up as a result of a separate conversation, completely separate issue that Mr. Martin suggested with regard to when accessory structures are referred to the Zoning Board of Appeals, just to be clear that they were using the same standards as used for evaluation by the zoning administrator, as opposed to defaulting to the variance standards. That's been the practice, but
Okay.
the language was missing to say, yes, that's the right thing to do. So.
Good.
Excellent. So the recommendation is that we forward this ordinance to the board for approval. Do we have any comments on the changes?
I have one.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me get to it somewhere around here. Section 6 of 38,492B, which I think is on page, I don't know, doesn't say.
4.
Page 4?
Page 4, yeah, section 6.
The outside edge of an in-ground pool shall not be located nearer than 4 feet. I thought it might be good to make that consistent with ground level decks that are 5 feet from the side lots or from the lot. So I would make a recommendation that the 4 feet be changed to 5 feet in order to give just a little more room for a pool being away from the lot lines, which is really still pretty close. So, so that would be my recommendation.
That makes sense.
Good either way.
Good.
I would support that as well.
Support that, Stephanie.
Can we come to make it 40?
I think that's a reasonable change. Not 4.5.
If you
5.
guys hadn't already made it 5 feet, I would say 10 feet. The last thing I wanted was a pool 5 feet away from my lot line, right? With 50 kids in it.
Yeah, as long as you can jump over and use it once in a while.
Well, they're really interested me, you know, at that point. What part of the pool is 5 feet from you? Which is probably at least an
The outside,
apron.
yeah.
around
It says the pool wall.
The outside wall of an in-ground, yeah.
So the apron around it can go all the way to the lot line, right?
The edge of the.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how that
in-ground
actually
wall.
shows up on my site plans. Nobody
Edge
puts
of an
it
in-ground pool.
something 5 feet from the property line, but yeah, it would be the edge of the pool wall.
Yeah, you could get, that's the pool, but the apron.
The apron that going around it
Can actually go to the lot, correct?
Go,
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
it could
which-
conceptually, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
you wanna change that?
No.
I'm gonna build a pool right next year. Don't buy the lot next year.
There's already a pool in the lot.
Wow, no one.
Is there a desire to change this beyond 5 feet before we're good?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Either way, I'm good,
Okay,
more or less.
I just think it's good to be consistent.
yeah, no, I agree. Other comments? Feedback? Looks good?
Yeah, I think it's right on target where we've been talking about.
Motion to approve with Terry's changes.
Well, we do have there's a public hearing
Oh.
that we need to offer. Nope. Jackie's shaking her head and saying, nope, she's not here for that. So in that case, I think we can open the public hearing, and I think I need a motion to close it, correct?
Motion.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Nice job, Mika. Thank you.
So motion to approve the ordinance.
Yes, as amended.
Recommended.
Support.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. You guys are making my job a little easier. Thanks. Let's see. I think that brings us to other business and announcements. Are there any other business and announcements that we want to cover?
I have an announcement.
Okay.
The township board passed the master plan.
That
I just put it down.
was the only thing I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry,
Thank you to everybody. Mika, obviously you and Harry did a ton to drive that. So thank you for all of the work, and man, talk about a team effort. Wow. Excellent.
It's really a good product.
The output's really good.
It's
Yeah.
actually very nice. They did very well done for the board, even though it wasn't there.
You weren't there.
Well,
Actually, I spoke with was it the chairwoman of MAP?
Yeah.
Andrea? Yeah, and she was aware of our master plan through some channels
Really?
and complimented us on the efforts that we put into it and stuff like that. She met somebody at Special Olympics or something like that has ties here somewhere.
Yes.
So,
Oh, that's
but
really.
she was very complimentary of it. She knew about our STR dilemmas and
Everybody knows about
Yeah.
it.
You know, everybody has.
Yeah,
Everybody
that's
has.
the truth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same deal they're going through. It's like just how you manage it, but yeah, for Terry and Stephanie and Dennis, we were at the conference this week, and there's, it takes a full day, but there's some good information there. And
Really
I got a lot of great information about small houses and residential densities and stuff like that, and different things that other communities are doing. So, I mean, if you get a chance in the coming years, I think it's time well spent.
Good to hear that.
It was, and I attended a zoning session this afternoon because I figured that was one of the areas I probably needed to learn the most about. And they had some really cool checklists and tools to be able to go through and audit your current plan and to be able to look at. I'll
nice.
share those
Awesome.
I'll share those with everybody. But it was really good stuff. Couple of good sessions. Very good. In fact, I was just gonna go today, and I think I might go back tomorrow and check a couple. I think I'm okay to do that, right? You got me signed up for the whole thing? I don't think any. Oh, sorry, we're being recorded. Maybe I'll go back. But there's some really good sessions tomorrow as well, but it was, yeah, I would encourage, again, this is the first one I've been to. I know Dave, you've been to a couple, you went to the one up north, I
Just
think,
one
right?
that's the Michigan Township Association.
Okay.
Terry is up there.
Okay.
in March this year, March or April.
Yeah.
It's great.
Looking forward to that.
The renewable energy today too.
Yeah.
It was similar to what they had presented before. It was just they're further along the road and a lot of communities are developing their ordinances or not and developing back to the state for permitting and stuff like that. But that's all 50 megawatt.
It is.
Yeah. It's basically
Yeah,
300 to 500 acres and above. it
It's
sounds like.
really, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna affect us too much, so I think we should do it, but I don't think there's a ton of urgency. I have a training on it next week. And
Okay.
so I am hoping in the next few months to bring it back to you, but I'm not concerned that we'll see some big mega project prior to that.
Yeah, just a comment on that regard, Steve Spallhoff sent me a text asking me where we're at on that particular item, and he was at a conference, same type of thing, where, they were indicating, well, it was an MTA conference, I think, webinar maybe. They were indicating that it would be good if your local communities had a ordinance in place in November when it becomes effective.
Okay.
And I told them you were working on it and that we had delayed it due to the fact that we wanted to get good information from the state, exactly the verbiage and all that before we proceeded. So I told them we were in the process, but probably wouldn't make November.
There's
Probably
a lot of
not.
resources.
I'll-
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you know, and I'll look at what the state's saying and then compare it to what you came up with before. It's possible that it could be there already, you know, it kind of depends on how much is shifted, so.
well, I still think we need to address the small scale, the backyard stuff.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
do, absolutely. And
Yeah.
We do.
Probably review that. So I think I have different thoughts than what I did a few
Yeah.
months ago.
Yeah, we covered a lot today. Yeah, there was a lot there. And it was also commented that the presenters were doing so based on the fact that it's still in draft form as far as the public act. So,
Resolutions.
yeah. So they're still finalizing some of the nuts and bolts, although I think they feel like they've got the majority of the details.
One of the things that Steve communicated to me that he got out of the webinar that they were saying is in your local ordinance that you provide an invite to the developers to come and work with the local, with us rather than going,
Rather than
rather than
MPSC.
going to the state.
Yeah,
So I don't know how you incorporate that into an ordinance personally, but.
I'm sure that I'm sure people are doing it, and so we could probably find models for that.
Okay.
I've heard that
Yeah.
That
it
is-
takes long enough to go through the MPSC that some people are
Just
like,
good to-
I'm willing to go through
Sure.
those,
So
so.
they
yeah.
have what we call it PREO. It's a compliant renewable energy ordinance.
Right.
And basically, everything in there complies with the state requirements, the public act. So if you have that in place, then you kind of have control of the permitting. Otherwise, you can be, what were the terms they use?
They call it workable or non-workable ordinances. Yeah.
So you can negotiate with the developers, you know, and that would be workable. Otherwise, if your ordinance is like, you know, real staunch, and say this is it, not workable, then they default back to permitting through the state. Which costs the developer more money, takes longer time,
Longer. Yeah.
but the state does all the work for us. You know, they're more thorough.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
as far as the due diligence and stuff like that. So there's, I mean, and they did cover the pros and cons
Yeah.
of the different things, but.
But I get that, that's just specific to large scale.
Mhm.
Right.
So,
50 megawatt. Which, like you said, it would be 300 to 500 acres.
Well, it's 5 acres per megawatt for every
They
meg.
were talking 10 today.
yeah,
10 for each meg.
yeah.
10 acres per megawatt. Well, by the time you have buffers and setbacks and stuff like that, you're probably eating into it, maybe a bunch of
Screening. Lots to it.
Anyways, yeah,
Great sessions
it's not
though.
my backyard. Yeah, but those are good conferences and do a little networking and meet some other people.
Yeah. Very good.
I would have been at the conference this week, but I was in a conference last week. And I didn't need to do back-to-back conferences.
Yeah. You got more time for that now.
Guys back. So.
That's what they told me, Terry.
No, I'm a member of the Ottawa County Land Bank.
Oh, okay.
And so there was a land bank conference in Muskegon. So I commuted back and forth in a couple of days to go to that. Learned a little bit and starting to understand about 1/10 of 1% of this whole concept. But it is, when you talk about it, it's everything in regards to real estate law, real estate sales, real estate foreclosure, real estate, all, et cetera, everything real estate. And then you put money with it from the state, understanding the state's organization and all that. So it was fun to be at. It makes sense that the county treasurer is the chairman of the land bank committee. And the reason for that is the original purpose of the land bank, which was actually formed 20 years ago in Michigan, was to provide a mechanism for properties that had been acquired by sheriff's sale by the county. As a result of foreclosures.
Yeah.
Walking out. So, so that was the impetus that took place 20 years ago, and that's still a pretty large portion of it. But the rules for land banks have expanded significantly, where they can deal with brownfields and yada yada yada, whatever's out there that's in disarray or a detriment to the community. Somehow you can acquire that okay, through a process. The last 2 years, there was $150 million spent by the land bank from the state. So turn that around and you think about the impact that's had, and a lot about probably 70% of that went to large metropolitan cities, Detroit, Minneapolis, et cetera. And about 45 million came into rural areas. So there's money to be had. The budget for next year is another 156 million. So it's increasing a little bit. And again, those properties will probably, a lot of them will be in the metropolitan areas.
Yeah,
Grand Rapids,
especially the brownfields. Yeah.
Interesting bit is for Ottawa County, our bylaws are still in Ottawa County, we were formed in 2010, and they're kind of restrictive yet. Kind of focused on the original intent, and so we need to rewrite our bylaws, and then we need to go out and identify the areas where we think we can use the land bank for our lineage. Kalamazoo, can give you a figure. Kalamazoo has over 260 properties that the treasurer has in her inventory from foreclosures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I go, and I didn't have a chance to ask our treasurer how many we have. I mean, that I doubt there's that many, but
that includes like homes and commercial property and
everything, any property that's foreclosed.
I think that was single family homes.
Just single families?
Wow. I don't think there was any commercial in that. I may be wrong, but even if it is, it's still a ton.
Still a lot.
So you can see how much money can be allocated to that. And so they also made a presentation on solar. And so that's where I found that where they talk 5 to 7 per megawatt. So it's fun. It was different and learned a lot. It's kind of fun to get there and kind of get a lay of the land a little bit. Got a little more educated and got a feel for at least when I go to the meeting, I might have something to contribute as opposed to sit there talking about the hell are we doing here?
Good.
So anyway.
All right.
So
Thanks for sharing that.
thank you for letting me share.
Absolutely. Other business or announcements? We're good?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn would be entertained.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Go.
All right. Thank you.
Off the record, right?
Yeah. Good fill in, my friend. You did the job.